Hi guys, are you looking for a vegan yummy soup? Look no further. Today we're making vegan soup. And here are the ingredients. 6 chopped onions. They're going to be diced the long ways and then diced into tiny bites. 6 chopped onions and 6 garlic cloves. Diced bell peppers and celery, about 6 bell peppers and about 2 bundles of celery. 2 bags of kale. Lots of vegetable broth. Non-chicken vegan chicken soup seasoning. About 10 tomatoes that we're going to dice up. Garlic. 2 whole bags of lentils. So for any of you all who are interested in exactly how I cut up those onions, I was explaining that I did 2 sets of onions, right? So for the first half of onions I cut them up the long way, just like how I'm doing right here, slicing them up into little thin layers. And then as I'm displaying, I dice the other ones up into like diced onions. So I did half long way onions and half diced onions. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to saute some of the long onions, and also it gives the soup good texture when you have some onions cooking diced up like little diced tomatoes a little bit, and then some of them long, because it just adds the texture to the soup. So I'm showing you how I slice them up the long way, and it's creating these long pieces of onions that I'll be adding to the soup. Now, you may be thinking, Almedia, wow, that is a big pot. Well, it is. It's a 16-quart pot. You won't need this for yourself, but I do like to share my food and feed other family members and bring food over to people's houses. So that's why I'm using such a big pot. It's for a lot of people. I'm using a 16-quart pot, so it's going to be a lot of soup for a lot of people. So go ahead once you have your pot and start putting in your protein. In this case, they are lentils. You can choose other beans if you like. For this specific recipe, I'm using lentils. Now, I did mention that this is for a lot of people. I'm going to be sharing this dish. Whenever I like to cook, I like to share dishes. So I am making a lot, and I'm making enough so there's even more leftovers for me throughout the week to eat myself. So I'm adding 2 whole bags of lentils. However, if it was, for example, just me, or perhaps I'm feeding a family of 4, you can get by with just only having 1 whole bag of lentils, or even a half a bag of lentils. It's really up to you, depending on the size of soup you want to make, and it just also depends on how long you want this to last. This soup by itself could easily last like 2 weeks if it was just me, or a week with a family of 4, as having soup all week. But it really just depends on you. But if you're a family of, if it's just you or up to 4 people, use a half a bag of lentils instead of the 2 bags that I am using. Now, I have went through my lentils and made sure there aren't any bad lentils in there that I need to pick out. A few times you see me like digging my hand in the pot, because I'm just making sure I'm taking out lentils that don't look nice to me. Okay, if they look bad, they look moldy or something, you just take those out. You kind of sort through them, eyeball them, and see what doesn't look good, because this soup is going to be soup of love. It's going to be yummy, and you don't want old lentils in there. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add spring water to the pot. Now, you may be wondering, why does it matter why spring water? Now, you can feel free to cook the lentils in faucet water if you want. I cook everything in bottled water. I don't cook anything in regular faucet water. Okay, so even though we're just cooking the lentils down, I still use spring water. But if you don't have an issue with faucet water, go ahead and use faucet water. Just note that when it's time to pour more water into the soup, I also put spring water into the soup. I'll be using more water to add to the soup after the lentils cook down, and you will see that coming. But just a quick tip on spring water. Spring water is good for the body. It alkalines the body. It's just way more better for our bodies, okay? You're going to see a whole bunch of bottles, but trust me, I'm eco-friendly, and all those bottles got recycled. Okay. Now, while the lentils are cooking, I had a little bit of time to chop up some garlic, which will be used later. But first, let's go ahead and add some extra virgin olive oil. I love the California brand, to a pot, because we're about to saute some veggies first. So I get very generous with this olive oil. It's very nice, good olive oil. I get very generous with it. I oil the pan down really well, just making sure it's oiled all over because I'm about to saute some bell peppers and onions. Yes, these bell peppers and onions, I don't just toss directly into the pot of soup. I cook them down so that they taste really good once they are added to the soup. I put all of the oils and stuff inside of the pot along with it. But it's good to kind of just saute your celery and your bell peppers, which is what you're about to see in this pan right here in this Tupperware. You're going to see a big old load of bell peppers and onions. It's good to saute them down because it takes a while for them to cook. If you just add them to your soup, they may be a little hard, but if you saute them and get them really soft and get all that yummy flavor mixed in with the olive oil and then toss it over to the pot, to the pot, you will thank yourself later. It just makes such a big difference, you guys. Trust me on this. So, little by little, I don't know if you can tell it's celery at the bottom. I did the celery at the bottom and then I added the bell peppers on top. I told you it's a whole bunch. You won't need this much. If it's just for you or a few other people and a few other people or just you, I would just say use 1 to 2 bundles of celery and bell peppers and maybe 2 bell peppers. But I am making enough so that I can share my soup with the world. I'm joking. With others. So I have made a lot of soup, and so I'm going to slowly cook this down. As you see that the bell peppers and celery is cooking on the stove, I am checking the lentils. I'm checking to see how they're cooking. It's a big pot, and I want to make sure that I am cooking them evenly. And anything that does not look right, I'm tossing it out. Any lentils that look bad or old or anything, I'm tossing them out. And I'm cooking down this celery and these bell peppers. And as I cook them down, you'll see me pouring them into the pot. So the lentils are cooking down, and so I'm adding more water. I told you this is something that I do, something that should be done. You add more water as the lentils cook down so that they don't burn. So you see me just adding extra bottles of water just to make sure that the lentils have enough water so they can cook down properly before it's time to add the additional ingredients. These lentils are really cooking. They're really starting to get soft at this point, and I'm just giving it a lot of stirs, just stirring and stirring and stirring around, just making sure that all of the lentils are being cooked evenly. Soup needs to taste good and flavorful, and it won't taste good if half the lentils aren't cooked. So I'm just doing a lot of stirring just to make sure that they're being cooked evenly. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and take some time to flip those bell peppers and celery. As you can see, I kept them on one side for a while because there's so many and you want them to cook nice. Now I'm just giving them a good stir, making sure that it's being cooked evenly. I want the celery and bell peppers to come out really, really yummy and soft so that when it's time to add them to the soup, they add really good flavor to the soup. As you can see, the lentils have cooked down. They're not ready to eat just yet, but they're ready to add the broth. So that's what I'm doing right now. As you can see, I'm adding vegetable broth. I use the 365 Whole Foods vegetable broth. I used the low sodium one. They were kind of running short, so I added a few low sodium, and then the other ones are just regular vegetable broth with the regular sodium amount in it, which still isn't a lot because it's just vegetables, right? So I'm adding the vegetable broth to the soup. Quick fun fact, Whole Foods is a great place to shop if you're trying out vegan dishes. They have so many varieties of like different food options and meal items. Like I said, so I'm adding the vegetable broth. I got the bigger bottle. I think the box bottle is like, it's a paper box. I think it's like 12 ounces. I'm not really sure. It's just the big box. When you go to Whole Foods or wherever you go, get the bigger box of broth, you all. And I bought 6 to 8 of these bigger boxes of broth. And so right now I'm pouring in a few of them right now. And as the lentils cook down and as the soup cooks down, I'll add more broth. I am counting correctly. That will be box number 6 that I just poured in. Sometimes it's easy to over pour in soup broth. So sometimes it's better, like I said, to just wait until it really cooks down, because with the broth and the water being added to it and everything else, and then all the ingredients, the level of the water rises, and we don't want anything to overflow. So sometimes it's better to just do as little as possible when it comes to, or at least do half of the liquids in the soup, so that as things cook down, things aren't overflowing. Some of the bell peppers and celery have started to cook down, so I'm pouring them into the soup pot. I'm sauteing them from the container I have them in, sauteing them little by little, and pouring them into the soup pot. This is really yummy. It's starting to smell really, really good. I'm also adding one of the bouillon packets I showed you earlier. It's the chicken, non-chicken, vegan chicken seasoning. That sounds like a tongue twister, I guess. As you can see, I love scraping off every little piece of the seasoning. I want to make sure all the seasoning gets into the soup. I added about like 5 to 6 as of now, but there's a total of about 12 to 14 that I'll be adding total just because it's such a big pot of soup. And you'll see as I go along as I'm adding the seasoning. Right now I'm adding even more celery and bell peppers. Oh my goodness, it looks and smells so delicious, you all. This soup is one of a kind. It truly is like yummy and healthy for you. So really quickly, I'm just adding some garlic and onions into a pot and sauteing some onions. All while that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead, open up the pot and put the raw diced onions, again, the raw diced onions and a few of the long sliced onions into the pot. So you're adding fresh onions to the pot as well as sauteed grilled onions and garlic to the pot. It's creating wonderful flavors, a lot of variety in flavors into the soup, which is going to make it even more of a yummy, healthy, hearty soup. I'm also going to go ahead and add some raw tomatoes. Remember I said I had a certain amount of tomatoes. I believe it was 12 total. Half of those are going to be raw. The other half will be sauteed in later. I'm adding another box of vegetable broth, but as I did it, I realized that maybe I should not have added more because the pot is starting to overflow, and I haven't even added all of the veggies to the pot yet. So I'll see if this is going to work for me later. I'm going to go ahead and add those grilled sauteed onions and garlic. Oh my goodness, this smells amazing to the soup. The grilled sauteed onions and garlic has been added, and as you can see, the pot is starting to kind of like almost overflow. So I probably shouldn't have added the extra broth. I'm going ahead to add fresh garlic that I diced up. Now remember, I added sauteed garlic and sauteed onions, and then I added fresh onions and fresh garlic. All of these different flavors together will make for an amazing soup. I am honestly concerned about how this pot is going to close after I put the lid on it. I may have to make some adjustments with the broth that's in it, but let me just finish adding this garlic and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, so I'm stirring it up, just trying to get all of those flavors to mix in together, and I can see that it's almost overflowing. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it goes. I have added most of all of my veggies. So I'm going to go ahead and let all of this cook down, and cook down it shall. Um, Soup is such a good dish to have any time of the year, and people love my vegetable soup. Now let's see how the soup is coming along. Things are really cooking down. As you have noticed, I have added an additional topping. It's kale. I do love to put fresh kale into my soup towards the end of cooking the soup because it only takes a few minutes to cook that kale. You don't want to cook it too long, so I put it in at the very last minute and let it just steam down and just cook and add all that juicy, healthy, hearty flavor. Make sure all those vitamins and nutrients are being mixed in with the rest of the soup flavors. And so you see me kind of mashing the kale down. I chopped up fresh kale. Now the kale that I am using is the 365 brand from Whole Foods. I shop there all the time. It's my go-to store. And I'm mashing it down, trying to get as much kale towards the bottom so that I can add more kale on the top. I want it to be a very hearty soup. So with every bite, you're tasting the different flavors of the tomatoes, the bell peppers, the onions, the celery, the garlic, the kale. You know, it smells amazing, you all. I just want to take a bite right now, but I won't. This is such a good soup. I'm telling you, you're gonna really love this. I'm adding more broth. Oh, by the way, I had to take some broth out. It did overflow, so I took some out and I'm adding it back in slowly as the soup cooks down. Sometimes that happens, you know, it's trial and error when you're cooking. Sometimes you get too excited. But hey, that's all a part of the fun. Now, as you can see, the soup is cooking down. It smells amazing. It looks amazing. And it's almost time to eat. Only a few minutes later, and guess what time it is? Soup is served. Yummy. And that is how you make yummy vegan vegetable soup. Remember, everyone, remember to have a happy life day.